we're just going to talk nerdy stuff. There we go.
Yeah. I was about to go, we will not babble. Yes, we will.
No, we won't BS too much.
Yeah, we will. Like, that's now going to change. We're changing the name of the podcast and a little bit about we're not changing what we talk about. We talk about it anyway.
Yeah, we're just changing like the branding. Jonathan's this business person and I'm this YouTuber person. Yeah, well, both of us are awful at branding apparently because we haven't changed it in like a whole season. So we decided to do it.
Yeah. So welcome to what was formerly known as the Notion Nerds and is now known as the PKM podcast. Ta-da!
Because we are no longer Notion nerds, not because we don't know Notion, but because we just don't use it, basically.
I used it for the team, but
begrudgingly.
Yeah.
You're like, damn it, I gotta use this thing. It's not a bad tool, but as you will probably gather, like if you're new to the podcast, we speak our minds. We're very honest, very blunt, and if you have a disagreeing opinion, please let us know. Both of us are on Twitter. I'm very active on Twitter. Jonathan is sometimes active on Twitter, sharing gifs and stupid words. And this is banter. This isn't insulting, okay?
Oh yeah, we really should clarify that for new people who are coming on. This is British humor. Basically, we either are self-deprecating or being horrible assholes to each other. That's how British humor works.
Yes, and both of us understand it. So if we insult each other, it's actually a compliment.
Yes.
Perfect logic.
You asshole.
Thank you. So, yeah. It's like,
let's do a fancy intro. You're an asshole. Thank you.
That epitomizes these conversations. And by the way, when we say this is a semi-serious, sometimes we have serious conversations. It's not just us prattling about. But we like to bring a bit of lightheartedness to the conversation rather than you just sitting there as like, this is a lecture that I need to listen to. No, you can throw that in the Bruno bin.
The Bruno bin. Throw it in the Bruno bin.
That is a reference to Enchanted. Is it Enchanted? Is that the thing?
Encanto.
Encanto.
I mean, actually, strictly speaking, I think it is Enchanted in another language. So that would be, I think you're right.
Bruno, the people that we don't talk about, the Bruno bin, that's the reference. So it's kind of like hey, here's a topic. Let's just put that in the Bruno bin for now because we're not going to talk about it. So we're going to go through some of the topics we've spoken about in previous episodes and what we will probably expand on in future episodes. And I'm going to start off with the most Bruno bin topic, which is ecological dynamics and information processing, which is very sciencey. And we Bruno bin that thing a lot, but it will be coming to the surface a little bit more as the conversations can evolve from me just saying stuff and John going, cool.
Yeah. Cool.
Actually, do you want to do a bit of background, actually, of who we are for people that are new?
Oh, yeah.
That would have been smart, wouldn't it?
That might have been. You can start.
Hi, I'm Danny Hatcher, and I'm a recovering academic.
Recovering academic? You're not a recovering academic because you're going straight back in there again.
That's why I said recovering. Like I'm obviously like relapsing.
You're a relapsing academic.
Yeah. So my background, I have an undergraduate degree in sports coaching, BSc, and then I have a postgraduate master's degree in strength and conditioning, which is basically a personal trainer, but for elite athletes, so GB athletes, international athletes, and you just sit in a gym and put weights on a bar all day. That's not it. That's me being sarcastic for S&C coaches out there. And then I'm starting a PhD. Yeah, I know, triggered. And then I'm starting a PhD in the easiest way to say it is learning science, which is pedagogy / andragogy. But yeah, which covers epistemology, ontology, psychology, ecological dynamics, information processing, cognitive science, and psychology, and loads of other topics that I'm just going to stop now because John's going to talk about his business. I was like,
slowly and surely just goes on and on and on and on. Oh, Danny's gone. Hi, Danny. Danny, come back now. Yeah, so I'm Jonathan Stewart. I run Simplicity Specialist, and I help business owners create businesses that fit their brains instead of trying to force themselves into doing things that everybody else tells them to do, because it's boring. And why would you not create a business that actually fits you, allowing you to use tools that fit you and your brain, as well as have business models and all the lovely stuff. I've been in business for 10 years, and I've had the pleasure of working with multi six-figure businesses. Half the time has been me helping them get to that. And yeah, I'm kind of a little bit excited to be a little bit more nerdy than I normally would on my own podcast. Oh yeah, we have our own stuff too. Yeah, maybe
that's a thing
about that as well.
We are professional podcasters.
You can tell I'm the business one here. Danny just goes on a whole train of thought, just going that way. I'm like having the nice concise messaging, and then like, Danny, you didn't talk about where people can find you.
I was leaving the introductions first, like YouTube and stuff. Well, I would imagine people have found us on the internet to hear us. It's kind of like an assumption, it's implicit. But yeah, we have a podcast, obviously, because that's why it's called the podcast, which is found everywhere. If you want to watch our faces and all of our hand gestures, yes, it is basically everywhere, because that's where it put. I don't know the actual platforms. I only use Spotify. Okay. But yeah, YouTube has got the links to my YouTube channel, John's Dead YouTube channel and website. And then
okay, hang on. And let me just clarify here. The YouTube channel is not dead. It's preserved for integrity. And the website is definitely not dead. Thank you.
It's in purgatory.
Yeah, purgatory. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So YouTube, if you want to watch us, as in our faces, YouTube, that's it has the raw footage like just dumped in. There's literally no editing, there's no cutting, because we believe in just raw conversation. But we don't really have many gaps. I mean, people moan at the speed that I speak at anyway, so I think you're a nice, like, I was going to say refresher, but you speak just as quickly sometimes. So.
Yeah, no, I'm not a refresher. We basically ramble the entire time, like we are right now.
You do take like breaks when you're speaking. You take breaks to think about something and then you go. Whereas I'm just like blah at people.
That might be the theatre kid in me of like, and I will just talk for an extended period of time and never stop talking until I suddenly just need to breathe.
Yeah.
It's pretty much me.
Yeah. So, bringing up some other topics that we've spoken about before, extended cognition, which is really fun, which is essentially building a second brain. Like for those of you coming in, you are probably familiar with building a second brain or linking your thinking or those sorts of frameworks. What's a PPV? I was going to say what's the bald guy, but August Bradley remembered his name. Yeah, PPV.
You did really well there. You were like, oh, what's the bald guy? Oh yeah. August Bradley's like, oh,
that's the mental cue that I had. That's how memory works. You have a cue which triggers the memory, and bald guy is how I remember August Bradley. Hi, August, if you're listening. Hello. So yeah, building a second brain, PKM, all that sort of like knowledge management stuff is encompassed in extended cognition and Andy Clark's work, and we can go into the science as well because that's always good fun.
Oh yeah, you'll always kind of approach things from a science perspective, and I suppose come at it more from a Gen Pop business perspective. I think Gen Pop's a little bit offensive for me to say that, but
do you want to explain that term? I like the term because it's a term I'm familiar with, but
that's true.
Yeah,
that's
general
true. So
population. Explain.
Yeah, so Gen Pop is general population. Is for the people who are not like incredibly hyper science nerds and who are not in academics, who are just people who are interested but don't have like this, or don't have a desire to learn every single flipping name under the sun that's really complicated, and don't want to look at articles and all the lovely papers and stuff that we kind of get a bit nerdy on.
Yeah, and you will notice I went I made a silly noise because I want to challenge it. I want to poke holes.
And yes, we will poke holes in each other as much as possible.
Yeah, so I want to poke holes in that a little bit. My philosophy, epistemological approach, ontological approach, whatever you want to call it, towards academia is slightly different from traditional, because I I didn't come up with this term, but I like this term of internet academic, because when you look all the way back at what academia was, it was an academy, i.e. a group of people having a discussion around a complex topic, typically an abstract topic, and looking for synthesis and critique to then move the conversation forwards. That then expanded into institutions, i.e. universities, colleges, schools, blah, blah, blah. But now you have academies, groups of people on the internet, in forums, in loads of different places, and the research isn't hidden behind walls. Yes, it's hidden behind paywalls, but we can get there. Sci-Hub, we both use it. So there is an ongoing conversation in communities. So I would class most of us as internet academics, because technically, by the rules of academia, I'm not an academic, because I have never published an academic article. I haven't published one.
And I definitely am not an academic, seeing as I haven't been in academia since, well, about halfway through college, which I left.
We're both from the UK, so can you just clarify what college is?
I have no clue.
How old were you?
18,
I'm assuming it's
19.
sixth form.
Yeah, sixth form. Yeah, sixth form.
Yeah, I was going to say, I assume it's sixth form, so like 18, 19. So that's not quite college in other countries.
No.
Yeah, that's why I was like, clarification, because when people hear college, it's not quite the same, because
it's uni, isn't it? What we class as uni. Yeah, no, so it's just before college.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's why I wanted clarification, because I'm like, you're not that old.
Yes, I am.
We don't have grey hairs yet, and there's a guy playing for my football team. I'm not even going to say it. The word. My football team, and he's going grey, and he's 23.
Oh bless.
Yeah, he's got black hair as well, so it's really, really obvious.
Yikes.
Yeah, I feel bad. So, we've gone through academia. What is an academic? A little bit. This is me spearheading ourselves back to our semi-script bullet pointed thing. We've gone up and down, so you know what? I'm going to turn these into tick boxes. I'm using Obsidian, by the way. I'm going to turn these into tick boxes, so I know what we've spoken about or what we haven't. Calling out BS. Yeah, we do that a lot. Tools. We'll go with that one next, because I just said Obsidian. I use Obsidian. I use Morgan, and that's about it.
Yeah, I use many more.
Yeah,
but I'm a bit of a...
Don't give us a list, because we'll be here for a while.
We will be here for a while. A long time. Yeah, we're very much, although both of us use Obsidian, when we don't really care about what tools you use. Not really. As long as the tools you use are working. Yeah, we are very tool agnostic. As long as the tools that you use fit you and work for you, we couldn't give a... You
were going to say rat's ass.
Yeah, couldn't give a rat's ass otherwise. Because tools
that's a saying.
Yeah.
Clarification. Yeah. That's a saying.
Yeah, that's a saying. Yeah, we couldn't give a rat's ass about what tools you use, because the tools are just the vehicles that you decide to drive in. And you probably will never hear a X tool versus Y tool when we talk, because what is the point? And we will never say which one's better.
Obsidian.
For our way of working, yes.
Why did you have to add the context? It's not as triggering then, you know. You need to be controversial. That's how you get the algorithms.
Danny, we are going to be controversial without even trying.
No, we're not. Monty Python argument sketch. This is an argument? Yes, it is. No, it's not. Yes, it is. Hopefully people get that reference. Otherwise, I just will. Monty Python argument
Let's
sketch.
make
Google
sure
it.
we don't ramble too much. We should probably have an intro that's just a little bit shorter. Yeah. Okay, Danny.
It is a shorter intro. Well, it was a shorter intro. We're now in the episode, you see. You got like we're peeing in the episode. Point, evidence, explain. I had to do that on the page. Like at school, we were always told like pee on the paper, point, evidence, explain. Yeah, we're peeing in the episode.
I think there's another one now. There's
There's so many. There's so many. Well, I was speaking to people from like America and Canada and other countries, and they have like completely different letters. I'm like, AIS, what? ACC, what? P, much easier. So now we're triple Ps. We're P professional podcasters. So we're wait, we're peeing on the PP? There we go.
And we've lost everybody.
Yeah, right. Atomic visuals is the next point on our bullet list. This was a recent point brought up in the Linking Your Thinking conference from, I can't remember her name, Laura, I think is her name. Atomic visuals. That's literally what I'm doing on my keyboard right now, which you could see. Yeah, Laura Evans Hill is the creator of the, I would say not creator of the idea, but the creator of like the wording, because I haven't seen anyone else use atomic visuals. I've seen lots of people say verbal to visual or use visuals or visual mapping or mind mapping or concept mapping, blah, 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 blah. But I haven't seen atomic visuals anywhere apart from her work. So yeah, I came across that work and it was really interesting, really useful. I don't agree with all of it, but that's the same with most things. Like there's going to be nuance, there's going to be context, and they're the sorts of things that we'll be talking about. So there's
yeah, absolutely. Context is where we will always explore. And actually, atomic visuals or a form of that is coming into business far more than it used to, which is quite cool. I know of a couple of people who do atomic notes. Oh, sorry, atomic visuals for conferences and stuff. So perhaps we can have that wonderful. Also, another thing we'll be talking about is how amazing the Feynman technique is. So
seriously went there.
No, I mean, I went on atomic notes and you started fuming. So I'm like,
right. No, we're no longer friends.
End of the episode.
Yeah, finished.
The PKM podcast, the shortest podcast that's ever existed.
How did it end? One of them said Feynman technique.
And that was it forever.
Yeah, so a bit of explanation. The Feynman technique is a technique not endorsed by Richard Feynman, who it's named after. He doesn't agree with it. There is no research to support it. And everything that, like all the bullet points, it's like, oh, explain to a 5-year-old. No, it's useless. Zone of proximal development. Yeah. Using teaching to help learning, yes, that's useful. That's dialogic learning. That's not the Feynman technique. They're different things. I'm not doing a rant. No, stop. Bruno bin that thing. So, yeah. Why did you say it? Atomic notes. I've completely skipped researcher, but atomic notes.
I went there.
Yeah, is one of those things that, again, there is this ongoing discussion in the PKM world of, do you take atomic notes or do you take longer notes? What is an atomic note? Is it a concept? Is it an idea? What's included? What's the format? And loads of other things. And then, is it a Zettel? Moving into Zettelkasten, what is that? Should you use that? How do you use that? Evergreen notes, structured notes, MOCs, index, blah, 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 etc. Word vomit. There's no end. So we'd figured, hey, let's talk about this stuff and go backwards and forwards between it.
Yeah, because also it's quite moving on to the next note around note taking in business. The business world is quite a lot different to the world that we inhabit, as in collaboratively, in terms of how business owners think about note taking and how they think about note taking, and how it's not really a big priority in business, not to the same degree as what we discuss, and how amazing actual, the whole entire idea of extended cognition is just not talked about. It's forever talked about in the PKM world in different ways, in different forms, but it's never brought into the business one, which is kind of what I am bringing into this conversation, is around how we can pull some of the concepts from personal knowledge management and bringing them into business to help people run a business that is supportive to them. Systems are often seen as this thing that has to fix them, whereas I truly believe that in the PKM space, it's about supporting you rather than trying to make you better at doing something. It's about being a support. It's part of your support network around you to help you do what you want.
I was just thinking, for those of you watching YouTube, whenever I'm looking in different directions, I'm going in my head to a different place. Not quite Mind Palace, but sort of that, like, anyway. I was thinking of an atomic visual with regards to, like, you've got like the business knowledge, learning science, PKM up here, and that's where the podcast is. It's sort of like right in the middle.
It's right there. Yeah, absolutely. It's bringing both sides together, which I don't think is done.
No, well, it's sort of done implicitly in conversations, but there isn't an explicit place to find it, hence the podcast. And with regards to the podcast, what we're speaking on, collaboration, like contributing to the conversation, that's exactly why John and I speak every Saturday, because both of us move forwards in different directions. John more business, me more science, and we sort of center it around like how are we actually doing this as a practitioner, as someone that uses these things. But for example, Obsidian released the Obsidian Sync collaborative vault last week, and now both of us are using it to script out this video. So we're using a sync vault inside of Obsidian.
Script.
Bullet point. Outline, as Logseek users love to point out to me. Logseek is an outliner. Obsidian is not. Yes, it can be, but we won't get onto that because we're not arguing today much. Much-ish. So yeah, that's a point that wasn't on there, but I brought up anyway. Yes, extended cognition. Why haven't you ticked it off? We got a winky face. We got a winky face and we've spoken about it.
There was always a winky face.
Yeah, I know, but we've spoken about it. You've got to tick it off. We need to change the colors of the ticks. It's purple. I don't like it.
Yeah, no, me neither. I want it to be the correct color.
Orange. Actually, what hex code is yours? What hex code is your orange? Don't tell me you don't know off the top of your head. You're gonna find
37222.
Okay, mine's FF8800 or the lighter color, but I prefer the FF8 one. It's just a little bit more vibrant. But anyway, that's a conversation for another time. Anyway, these are the sorts of things. They're like tangent. That's why my phone has a squirrel on it. Anyway,
yeah, that originated from us.
Yes. It is really good artwork as well. It's a squirrel holding an orange. I couldn't quite remember what it was holding. Why did I even bother? Like, orange, duh. So, researcher. We spoke about academics earlier, or academic as being an academic, but researcher. What does it mean to be a researcher? And I think this is one of those things in the PKM space that needs to be not necessarily defined, but explored more thoroughly, because everyone researches. Everyone that's done a YouTube video researches to some point, because you typing something in on Google is researching. So is that a professional researcher? No, but what does that mean? What does professional researcher mean? I don't think there is one. So I think we all research, just to a different extent, to a different depth, which is where PKM comes in. Yeah.
I think we actually did a podcast episode on that. Research.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. And RE search, just for reference, which is why he emphasized the re bit. And I think research in general, because we all do it, is a skill. I think it's a skill that evolves over time. And John, actually, maybe share your story, because you weren't what I would class as internet academic. You were more of a PKM user. And then after our conversations, you were like, you know what? Let's have a go.
So I came from, like, in the business world, I have, probably more context. I have a family, I have 2 young children, etc., etc. So I'm not just a business owner. I'm also a father, a parent, all the lovely things. So I have quite a lot of responsibilities that take my time. And so for me, as I was coming to the conversation, I always wanted to do more research, traditional research based, but timing was never something that I had until I started interacting more with Danny. And I'm like, well, I was really intrigued about combining what I love to do and all of the work that I have, as well as doing more deep level research, of going more deeper and going beyond just a Google and a blog article, which honestly I never liked in the first place, but it was quicker most of the time, but it lost a lot of the context. And as I grew my business, I was looking more for context versus just what restarting what everybody else says, and it's always not quite right and there's missing contexts. And so I was like, after talking to Danny, I'm like, well, I kind of want to give this a go and shift my focus away from just storing my ideas, which is where I started. I started in Notion, and I was kind of storing ideas versus actually taking them, using them, figuring stuff out, and more passive storage into a more active role of like, okay, let's take what I have and do something with it and kind of bring it into part of what I do in my work as well. And so that's when I started diving deeper into research and I switched to Obsidian, and now I'm much more of an active researcher. No, I don't spend all my time researching. I can't. But research does play a part in everything that I create and produce and work with. And yeah,
so if I understand your story correctly, because obviously we've sort of lived through it, so I'm trying to like recall what you were like beforehand. You didn't look at academic articles, meta-analysis, systematic reviews. Those terms were just foreign to you.
Yes, absolutely.
And then Sci-Hub as well. You're like, what's this thing? What made you want to? What put you over the edge to go, oh, this academic research thing isn't this locked door that I shouldn't step behind because I'm not at university? What made you actually go and explore?
It was I was under the impression I couldn't explore unless I was in university. That was the original thought. I was like, well, I can't do this because I'm not doing a PhD. I'm not doing any sort of academics work, so I can't do that. There's no use and value for me by doing that, which I realize now was completely incorrect and not necessary, and was just, that's what started me off. I was like, oh, well, if I can do it, then I'm going to go do it. If I have more information that I can use, then why the heck wouldn't I go and play and see what it is? Now, half the time I don't agree with most of what's said, which is great and lovely. But it gives me an additional perspective that I can take into my work and allows me just to expand what I know instead of just staying with what I believe, because it's more interesting when I find new things that contradict myself. ED is definitely one of them. And I'm like, oh, yes, and no, I hate it. It's much more interesting when you can have conflicting views, because there is no answer when it comes to how the brain works, because nobody knows. And I think that's the fun part of being a coach, is being able to bring that into your work and being able to take from playing with different methodologies, different understandings, different levels and ideas, and seeing what works, because that's what my role is in my business, to help my clients understand how they work so that their business can fit them. And so it was a bit of a no-brainer of like, yeah, I'm going to go research and find out more about how the brain works and all the different pieces of the brain. Do I understand half the stuff that's being said? No. Do I need to? Not really. Google is very helpful. Yep. Except it's very dangerous, because then I go down a 4-hour rabbit hole of too many things.
I guess from someone that's been in academia for 7 years now, and when I say academia, I mean like institutional academia, not internet academia. I'm very familiar with how articles are written. I'm very familiar with the structure, the searching, like what's a good article, what's not a good article, what to look for, what not to look for, how to read an article, what to find, what stats mean, what methods mean, etc., etc., etc. How did you get over that overwhelm of looking at an article going, I don't understand what this first sentence says. I don't know what all of these reference things mean, and I don't know how to find what I'm looking for. How did you get over that hump?
Yeah, so I knew what a reference was. I had an understanding of what that actually is. In terms of how did I understand like the structure, most of it was just fumbling through it and figuring it out and coming to you and asking questions and just going, hey, what the heck? Like, it was really interesting because you were doing it much further ahead. And you're like, oh, you just need to look at this, this, and this. And I'm like, oh, cool. I don't have to read every single page up until the references then. Huh. Well, that's just saved me hours of time. I think there was a misconception I had when I first started around I had to read every single thing, treating it like a book where I read every single page of said book, which was not actually very valuable. And just being able to just go straight through and skim it most of the time. These days, I skim the introduction a little and just see what's in the middle, if there's anything that pokes out at me, and then I go to the end and I've got what I needed, because it's much easier that way. And some of these things are 100+ pages, and I'm just like, yeah, no, I can't sit in the living room with my kids playing Animaniacs in the background trying to concentrate on this stuff. I've tried, it does not work.
Tried and tested.
Tried and tested, and I can tell you I can't do it.
Yeah, so that's what you're saying right there epitomizes first year uni students. And I think a misconception that happens when someone says first year uni student, the immediate character that comes to most people's mind is like 18-year-old, 19-year-old, 20-year-old student that sort of wants to learn, doesn't really care, wants to get drunk a bit and mess around. But that's not true, because there are a lot of mature students that go in first year that have the same issues. I mean, there was someone in my cohort, I think it was 53 when we started, and he looked at an academic article and just like you, he was like, he had to read the whole thing. And because I had read articles before I started my degree, luckily, otherwise I would have been like same as everyone else, really. He was reading through these articles, and the pre-reading for lessons, our lecturer would say, hey, here's 5 articles, get an understanding of them. And this mature student would read through every single word. And I'm like, just read the abstract, read a bit of the introduction to get a background literature, and then just read the discussion and the conclusion. Like, if you want to look at the methods, go for it. If you need to understand more of the literature, then just read more of the introduction. But instead of reading like 50, 60 pages, you end up reading like 4 or 5.
Yeah.
But those sorts of things are things that university students learn that I think we could teach everyone and anyone, that you don't have to be in a university to do that. And that's the internet academic way, I guess you could say.
Yeah, and it's actually, it brings it forward to be possible for everyone, not just those who spend all their time in the PKM space. I think it's really important to bring that back forward. For the vast majority of people who are listening to the podcast will be PKMers, and they are people who are already very much into that. But there is also another side. If you are a coach and are helping other business owners or people to do this kind of stuff, it's really important to make sure they understand the misconceptions as well. I think you had a whole thing that you did a whole lovely bit of research on that one, so I'm not even going to try. But it's really important to actually remember that we start from a place of not knowing what the heck we're doing and just slowing down the learning. Often it's very much whenever in the PKM play, oh, I want to improve my PKM. I want to do this. What app should I use? What tool should I use? What this should I use? What that should I use? And often what happens in this space is that everyone shows the most complicated system in the world because, and my assumption here is that it looks impressive and funny and funky and amazing and cool. Whereas quite frankly, sometimes all someone needs is a couple of folders and a place to get started. And I think that's really important in the PKM space. Yes, we can be nerdy and go really deep into Zettelkasten and index notes and all the other stuff we talk about, but that block is not
references,
block references and all that lovely stuff that we love. But also there is a place for just the simple stuff. Because that will help more people to explore the PKM world, because it's incredibly valuable to be able to extend our cognition beyond just what's in here, because often business owners spend all their time feeling really, really overwhelmed and they just don't know what to do about it. And then they come to find out how to organize themselves. And then you get all these freaking paras and codes and this and that and PPV and JKL and NMNOP. And it becomes really overwhelming. So they're now having to overwhelm themselves further to be able to not overwhelm themselves, when really it's a case of just getting it out of your head. And that's where PKM starts, is just taking it from in here and externalizing it, extending it, if you would.
To put some science behind that, cognitive load theory, working memory theory from Badley, and cognitive load theory from Sweller. If you're interested, if not, never mind. I've got a page on that on Obsidian Published, so feel free to explore.
Oh, it is really cool. And exploring cognitive load theory is really cool with my clients, because I do it. I do actually make them do that as an exercise, and they're like, "Oh, I basically spend half my time full." Yeah, and you wonder why you're not able to do anything.
What would you use as a reference for cognitive load theory? It's like, is there an image or something that you point people towards?
It's quite literally, so the exercise I say is to literally just spend some time reflecting. Some people love to write it down. Some people just want to do it in their head, which is hilarious because then they just have more into them. But it's like trying to get the boundaries, and it's a numerical scale. It's like, so where do you feel you are by the end of the day? Is it a 0 or is it a 10? Where do you feel you are on the fullness of you, like in your head? How full do you feel? And it's really simplified, but it's a nice way of starting that.
Yeah. It's just interesting because measuring cognitive load theory, or measuring cognitive load is very, very difficult. And I'm not going to go into the science behind it, but cognitive load theory is on the IP side of like learning, information processing side of learning. And there's a lot of arguments for and against it, but it's a nice model to use to help manage energy, which is obviously what you're looking to do with a Likert scale. Likert scale being like a 0 to 10 normally.
And actually they often choose their numbers as well. So if they're not sure they're going to do 0 to 10 or is it 0 to 7, where are you? Like, what is your numbers? Where's your trying to grab the boundaries of where they are? That's how I visualize it for them. And then that's pretty helpful for them to see where they are on the scale. And like, I'm all the way up here most of the time. Okay, so how does that feel? Like, just a lot of reflective exercise, because it's really valuable and it helps people to figure out where they actually are, because often we're just told to do more and think more and not actually do something with it. And just
psychology, Kolb cycle, all that lovely
stuff. All that lovely stuff.
Tags and folders. Which one do you use? Should you use them? The ever-going question that never has an answer, because there isn't one.
I have an answer. It depends.
Mic drop. Don't drop it, because then everyone will hear it. Okay. See, mine's on a boom arm, so I can't drop it. Unlike John, I have very rare technical issues, but John loves to have technical issues with his, what is that, mesh bin holding up the mic?
Yeah, it's a bin. Yeah.
It's for those of you that can't see, it looks like a mesh bin, but really
it is
small.
A mesh bin. It actually is just a tiny mesh bin that it's sat in. I have all this really nice technical gear around me, and I hold my mic in a mesh bin.
And it's actually a good mic.
It is a very good mic.
Oh dear. Yeah. The tech guru over there actually has more technical issues than the weird academic nerd over here. So I'm happy with that. I just set it up and go. John's like, oh, I've got a new toy. I've got new software. I need to update this. I use like 10,000 terabytes of memory on loads of hard drives because I back up everything like 30 times.
Oh, do you want to go with a backup conversation? Oh, don't do backups. Oh, don't need them. I lost everything. Shit.
When did I lose everything, huh?
I don't remember.
Because I haven't. And I do have
backups. Because you started backing stuff up.
No, Obsidian does it for me. Like, Obsidian just syncs everything everywhere.
Yeah.
So it's not me making a backup. It's just me using a tool that has backup built into it.
Notion is so good.
Yeah, exactly. Notion doesn't have a backup built into it. My computer crashed yesterday because I was doing lots and lots and lots of stuff at the same time. And my computer was like, no.
Mr. Technical, I never have technical issues. I made my computer crash.
I said rarely. This is the first time it's crashed in like the 2 years I've had it. So, but yeah, I did a restart, and because everything's saved, I was like, oh, cool. Just put it back up. Yeah. Whereas sometimes when you have to like close down the browser on Notion or something, it didn't save the last couple of blocks you did. Or sometimes I've had it
honestly, I judge everyone who uses Notion in their browser. Just no.
Yeah. That was 3 years of like great working, and then just a couple of months of just extreme pain until I moved to Obsidian. But that's because my use case changed. I went from
and it changed vastly.
I went from just, hey, I just want to manage some tasks, some projects, and some notes here and there, to I'm going to actually do this research into an academic thing. I want to understand what's going on. I don't want to just be, hey, this person did a tweet, I'm going to retweet it and just give my opinion on it. I want to know, okay, where did they get that idea from? Is it backed by any science? Is there behavioral science behind it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? And really find an evidence base for what's said, or in most cases, to be honest, online, a lack of evidence base. So trying to map it to something that is evidence based, and then molding it and shaping it to something that is science and not just pseudoscience, which is essentially what Tools for Thought are for, which is a very nice segue, actually. I just looked over, I was like, oh yeah, Tools for Thought. And Tools for Thought is a movement, I guess you could say, inside of the PKM space. Kind of like a subculture, as you were. And there are so many Tools for Thought. Rome sort of kicked it off, and now they can go die in a hole. And yeah, I can't stand Rome as a tool. The people that use it, great, fine, not fussed. But everyone that I've spoken to that uses Rome or used Rome are like, oh yeah, I've thought about going to Obsidian, or I might go to Obsidian. And I spoke with someone in a meetup on Wednesday, and they use Rome. And I said to them, why don't you move to Obsidian? And they said, the only reason is I have all my notes in Rome. That's literally the only reason. And that doesn't surprise me, because obviously moving systems, moving notes takes time. And people that have been in Rome for a year or so, it takes time to move over. But I'm like, what? But anyway.
Hang on, it takes time to move over?
Well, yeah, if you've got
They
like
not just drag the folder.
No, because Rome Markdown.
Yeah.
Rome Markdown is different to Obsidian Markdown. I mean, you could move the things over, but when you read the notes, it's just going to look like vomit. I mean, it does anyway. It's Rome, but no, that was a joke. That was a joke. You can CSS in Rome. I know you can do
that. Oh, we're gonna get cancelled.
A PKM podcast getting cancelled. Who cares enough about PKM?
Yeah, good point.
And now on Twitter, when we post this, there's going to be like 100 people that are going to be 100 the Rome cult are going to be after us. The Logseq users are going to be after us. The Notion users are going to be like pitchforks, really light pitchforks that you can't see because the colors aren't contrasting. Anyway, no BS in this podcast. Laughing fit insert.
As I said previously, we are tool agnostic.
Oh, yeah, I love Notion. Just not to use it. No, it is a good tool, sort of. Programmable notes. It's the last point on our list, but programmable notes goes well with Tools for Thought, because a lot of Tools for Thought are code friendly. They're not general population or Gen Pop friendly. We're going to use Gen Pop in future podcasts, because I will not remember to say general population every time. The Gen Pop don't necessarily know how to code. They don't know what CSS is or HTML is or JavaScript or anything like that. And when they see like Obsidian without the live preview, they saw all the hashes. They're like, what is this? I don't know what that is. So Tools for Thought traditionally are code friendly, developer friendly, engineer friendly. I had to learn that so I could understand what's going on, because I'm one of those people that want to get in right at the start. And then you look at it, you're like, what are all these red words? Why are they red? Why are they blue? And it's because of the coding language. Like, oh, I don't know what that is. Like at the moment, I'm working with Pandoc and I need to use a command line. So I had to learn what the command line was. And then I had to learn what GitHub was, because there are things stored in GitHub that I needed to use. General population don't want to do that. They don't care about that. And I think Tools for Thought, if they're going to be pushed semi-mainstream, need to be as user-friendly or end-user-friendly as possible, which is where the idea of programmable notes, I've borrowed/stolen that term from Maggie Appleton, which is where programmable notes can come in. So they're end-user-friendly. John, thoughts before I carry on?
Yeah, and I think this is where business owners stop. The moment that there is code coming in, the moment they have to put that in, it becomes really hard for us as business owners to just do it because it's another thing they've got to learn. It's another thing they've got to be able to do. And just what is needed is simplicity and ease. And often, as I was saying earlier, it's easy to get carried away with the really deep and nerdy stuff versus what is actually needed for the individual. And programmable notes is very powerful and fun, but I would say it's not necessarily required.
To use what Maggie spoke about in, I think it was a Twitter space it was in. I can't quite remember. Let me just look in Obsidian. Maggie Appleton. Yes, it was a Twitter space. She spoke about it with
extended cognition working perfectly there, ladies and gentlemen.
And it was with Bianca as well. They were talking about programmable notes on Twitter, and she was saying that programmable notes are notes where you can add script, i.e. coding script or templates or things that allow the user to customize them to their own use, which is essentially a plugin or an add-on, which Obsidian, Logseek, Rome, Tools for Thought do really, really well. But like you were saying, the business users don't know scripts, don't know plugins. And when you speak to most people about Obsidian plugins that don't understand how they work, they're like, what? Like, what is a plugin? Like they can grasp an add-on, but they don't really know what it's doing. Which is where I think in Obsidian, they've moved it to be almost seamless. It's very difficult to get confused with how plugins work, but some plugins where you have to set up the settings, you need to, for example, Pandoc, I have to put in a line in the advanced section like -- bibliography, colons, and then the path name. That sort of setup for business users is going to go over their heads. They need a drop-down menu. Like, give me a couple of buttons in a drop-down menu, I'll be good.
Yeah, because it's just ease and reducing cognitive load, because these apps are quite heavy on the learning curve when you first get started, especially if you try to do what everyone tells you to do. If you follow the meta, you're screwed, which business owners will do that. They will just follow a YouTube video, copy that, and then wonder why it doesn't work and blame the app.
And that's where communities like this are helpful, like Obsidian Discord, Logseek Discord, whatever Discord. I have a Discord as well, but yeah, it's my Discord is geared towards the internet academics, the ones that want to do the research. So business users may go in there, see some code script that goes into Zotero and be like, nope. So yeah, finding the right community to help you, certainly useful.
I mean, to be fair, we could probably rebrand the Notion Nerds podcast into the PKM podcast. We can have a bit more of the balance as well.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah, that sounds good, because we do have a Discord that's dead. Well, it's not dead because the bot does the work. But yeah, so to close this out, if anyone does have any guests, any ideas, any people they'd like us to speak to, or if they would like to come on themselves, do let us know. Just reach out to us literally anywhere: Twitter, Discord, YouTube, through Anchor. I think there's comments in Anchor.
Yes,
yeah, reach out to us, let us know. Yeah, John, any final words?
Yeah, we're very excited for this new version of the podcast. It's definitely more what we're actually talking about now. So
better branding, BB. We're peeing on the PP with BB. Leave it there. Bye, everyone.